Hello lovelies! Today's video is going to be a bit of storytelling, so I'm drinking lots of tea with honey and milk for my throat, and I hope you like this story that I wrote while I was in Finland in September. Farmhouse Fairytale Part 1, Autumn. Chapter 1, Where Does the River Run? A river runs far between tall trees, disappearing under the ground and reappearing before finally arriving along a small hamlet. Through the hamlet runs one unmarked dirt and pebble road, on which there are 7 houses, where there live 7 families, consisting of 7 members on average. One crisp autumnal evening, Annika arrived at that hamlet carrying nothing but a small leather suitcase. Her clothes were layered, practical, and worn. She had wandered in from the forest, causing a silent stir. Annika entered the most central-looking building, the inn, and smiled at the innkeeper and the elderly men drinking at a table. The inn's visitors returned the smile instinctively, albeit with a hint of confusion. The inn was always open to visitors, though the concept of visitors was limited to those who had been born there and returned for nostalgia's sake. They seemed to feel a certain reassurance seeing that their childhood home, the place that had shaped them and which they helped to shape, still existed. Which was why all the elderly men in the inn were currently wondering if they were losing their memory, though they wouldn't admit it. The newcomer's face was rounded, and her features soft, so she might be from the husbandry family. But then there were the freckles that littered her face, and her hair that was made up of thick auburn curls. The only family with hair that color was the forestry family, and the only family with curly hair was the Fields. Still, her smile had reminded them of the Orchards family's sweet nature, and her walk was like that of the Carpenter family. Her eyes were large and hazel-colored, like the hunters'. Well, she certainly didn't come from the innkeep's, since the innkeeper didn't seem to recognize her. "Good evening." "Good evening. Do you have any rooms to let?" Annika said to the innkeeper standing behind the bar. She kept her shaking hands in her pockets and focused on smiling. "Of course, but I'm sorry I can't recall. Whose daughter are you?" the innkeeper asked straightforwardly. "Excuse me? I don't think you'd know them." Her heart skipped a beat, and she tried not to show it. The old men at the tables let out a sigh of relief. Their memory hadn't failed them after all. "Oh, okay then. Welcome. Have a drink and I'll prepare your room." The innkeeper awkwardly thrust a mug of cider across the bar. He had never encountered this situation before, but the innkeeper was used to respecting the privacy of others, a skill unique to him and generally non-existent in the rest of the hamlet's population. An inn such as this, where all members of the society meet, by all rights should be a hub of gossip, but the innkeeper did his best not to encourage such behavior. "Thank you very much," she replied, and the innkeeper went upstairs, meeting his wife along the way and discussing something quietly, intimately, then parting with a kiss. The innkeeper's wife went down the stairs, switching the baby she held to the other arm, and shaking Annika's hand. "Well now, what brings you to our neck of the woods, dear?" the lady asked, her round face and squinty eyes adorned with smile lines putting Annika at ease. Annika had anticipated this question, so she had come up with several answers, all of which contained a little bit of the truth in them, but the look in the innkeeper's wife's eyes made her unable to lie. Annika sighed and thought how lying would be such a waste of effort. I'm looking for... I don't really know, to tell the truth." Annika fumbled. The innkeeper's wife smiled genuinely, her eyes crinkling to reveal how she had gotten her smile lines in the first place. Annika felt relieved. "Well, you're young. I suppose you're out to see the world, eh?" she asked, bouncing her baby to the other side again. She wasn't quite wrong, but still that wasn't how she would describe it, Annika thought. It was more like she wanted to belong in the here and now, right where she stood. She liked this lady. She was warm like a fireplace in winter and smelled of sweet herbs and berries. Her warmth made Annika feel hopeful that this might be a place she could belong. "Something like that, yeah?" Annika smiled, sighing inwardly. She was finally calming down. She'd been quite nervous when she had first seen the inn. but she'd made it this far, and she was going to have a roof over her head. Oh my! Well, excuse my manners, but I haven't introduced myself. I'm Bronwyn, and this here's little Tom, the newest addition of our family. My husband you met, he's Wayne. And what should we call you? I'm Annika, ma'am. Pleased to meet you. The pleasure is all mine. So, Annika, how long are you planning on staying? That depends, ma'am. I wouldn't mind finding some work, though I'm not sure what I can really do, Annika mumbled, thinking of how her only known competence was the ability to read an entire book in one sitting. Well, now, but that's perfect. My friend Denise Orchard could use a helper, I know for sure and certain, and I can tell you're just what's needed. I'll ask around with the others. There's always need for an extra hand this time of year. Feel free to stay as long as you like, Annika. Annika felt bubbly with excitement at the thought of having something to do. She already felt less like an outsider. Then she realized she had forgotten the innkeeper's wife's name already and blushed. She wanted to ask again, but it seemed too late. There's also the matter of payment, dear. You see, we don't really use money around here, but would you have anything against working for your food and board? I'll make sure you can get anything else you need, of course, not just food. That sounds perfect. Thanks ever so much, ma'am. Annika felt it was a very generous offer, at least to a stranger coming around with no expectations. Well then, that's settled. Let's show you to your room, and we'll put you to work tomorrow. Annika was guided up the stairs to a room where the innkeeper stood with his arms full, having just finished preparing her bed and removing dust blankets from the furniture. The window was open, cool and fresh air seeping in. You're free to use the room as you please. I can understand if you want to bring in some flowers, of course, to make it more personal. You just tell me what you need. Bronwyn smiled. Annika looked around. She didn't care about making it more personal right now. She didn't know what she wanted, but felt a little stressed at the thought of disappointing the innkeeper's wife. All right, I'll let you know. Annika smiled shyly. Good. Then we'll let you get settled. We're downstairs if you need us. Sleep well and sweet dreams. Oh, and welcome to our little town, Bronwyn smilingly said, and Wayne simply nodded. Then the couple went on their way. Thank you. Good night, Annika mumbled. She finally collapsed on the bed, kicking her shoes off and rolling into a ball. As she drifted off, she thought she heard Bronwyn and Wayne speaking in hushed voices. But I really do wonder what brought her here, and how she found. The voices grew too faint as the couple reached the downstairs. During the night, Annika woke abruptly. Lying in the dark, listening to the wind and the trees, her mind raced. She thought about where she was and how she had come. She was far from everything she had grown up knowing. A scary thought, though she didn't mind it much. She sat up and fumbled to light a candle, and walked carefully across the cold and creaky floor to a desk in front of the window. She opened her baggage and got out her journal, one of the few possessions she had brought with her. She jotted down the date in the upper right corner and began. Dear Diary, I was asked why I came here. I wish I could have responded more truthfully. I think it is in part due to a longing for adventure, and in part because nothing seems quite right at home. I don't seem quite right there, although I'm not quite right here either. I hate school. I don't think the things we learned were true. It's not the wars that are our history, but the many people farming our food, like these people. I went into the forest to escape civilization, but I ended up finding this place. A type of civilization, I suppose. The day before I left home, in school we were asked to choose our future careers, to dedicate ourselves to one discipline. When I got home from school that day, my mother was in a foul mood and said she wished my dad had taken me with him when he left. It wasn't the first time she said it. I packed my things that night and left in the morning. I walked all day through the forest. At first it was exciting, and then my heart began to hurt and my body was tired. I'm honestly not sure how long I walked before reaching the place. It may have been several days. I should have asked for some food. Annika's belly grumbled and she went back to bed.